Hello everyone. Today we will be explaining you the chapter 4 India's external relations from the book Politics in India since Independence. But before starting the chapter, we will explain you the meaning of two very important terms. Foreign policy. A foreign policy is a systematic statement of deliberately selected interests based on several factors like national interests, global concerns, economic development, etc. National interests. National interests are the interests of the country whose major components are national development, national stability, and national security. The international context when India got independence in 1947. The world had witnessed a devastating war and was grappling with the issues of reconstruction. Attempts were being made to establish an international body. Many new countries were emerging as a result of the collapse of colonialism. And most new nations were trying to come to terms with the twin challenges of welfare and democracy. Apart from these factors at the global level, India had its own share of concerns. The British government left behind the legacy of many international disputes, and the task of poverty alleviation was already waiting for fulfillment. Also, the partition created its own pressures. This was the overall context in which India started participating in the world affairs as an independent nation state. As a nation born in the backdrop of World War, India decided to conduct its foreign relations with an aim to respect the sovereignty of all other nations and to achieve security through the maintenance of peace. This aim finds an echo in the directive principles of state policy. Article 1 of the Indian Constitution lays down some DPSPs on the promotion of international peace and security. The state shall endeavour to promote international peace and security, maintain just and honourable relations between nations, encourage settlement of international disputes by arbitration. Both domestic and international environment influence the foreign policy of a nation. The developing countries lack the required resources to effectively advocate their concerns in the international systems, so they pursue more modest goals than the advanced states. They focus more on peace and development in their own neighborhood. Moreover, their economic and security dependence on the more powerful states, for example USA, USSR, occasionally influence their foreign policy. Immediately after the end of the Second World War emerged the Cold War. Cold War referred to a situation after the Second World War when there was a lot of tensions between the power blocs led by US and USSR. This was a war of nerves and ideology fought diplomatically without arms. The Cold War also referred to the competition, the tensions, and a series of confrontations between United States and Soviet Union backed by their respective allies. As a result, the entire world was divided into two camps, namely NATO and Warsaw Pact, headed by USA and USSR respectively. Many developing nations supported the foreign policy preferences of the powerful country who was giving them aid or credits. At the time of independence of India, Cold War had just begun, which had great impact on different foreign policy and relationships between different countries. Even the end of the Cold War changed the context of international relationships entirely.
Policy of NAM. The Non-Aligning Movement is a forum which comprises the countries which don't want to align with any major power bloc of the world. It was initiated during the 1940s for the newly independent countries so that they don't be obliged by any power bloc and get trapped into their hidden colonialism, rather focus on their own development. It was formed by combined efforts and the friendship of five leaders: Jawaharlal Nehru from India, Sukarno from Indonesia, Gamal Abdel from Egypt, Joseph Broz from Yugoslavia, Kwame Nkrumah from Ghana. Major objectives of NAM: abolish of imperialism and colonialism, maintaining international peace and security, end of racial discrimination, cooperation with UN, nuclear disarmament, establishment of NIEO, Global Cooperation of Protection and Environment and enforcement of human rights. This map is showing member countries of NAM.
India's presence in the international arena. There were two ways in which India's presence was established in the international arena during the post World War II period and Cold War period. First, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose meeting the leaders of the Axis powers to gain support from them to ward off the Britishers from India. Netaji sought support from the leaders of the Axis powers, that is, Germany, Italy, and Japan, to ward off the British out of the country. He was considered to be the most suitable leader to represent a population of 100 million Indians by the Emperor of Japan and Hitler. Second, the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, initiating the formation of the NAM so that the newly decolonized countries could stay out of the Cold War politics and focus on their internal development. Initiation of the NAM by the first PM of India. So the NAM was formed by newly decolonized countries for the newly decolonized countries so that they do not fall into the trap of hidden colonialism by the two power blocs and work towards their internal development. With the help of NAM, India was able to express its views openly in the international arena without being influenced by anyone. Why did India devise a policy of non-alignment and not join any one camp or bloc, distanced from two camps? In this map, we can see in the red color are marked the capitalist bloc countries and in the green color are marked the communist bloc countries. Now we'll know why India did not join any of these blocs. India advocated non-alignment as the ideal foreign policy approach because it wanted to keep away from the military alliances formed by the USA and the USSR. Nevertheless, India was able to mediate and at times balance amongst both the hegemons. But at times, this balance seemed to be unfair, as in the case of India signing a 20-year friendship treaty with the USSR, and also not calling out USSR on its Hungarian invasion, but calling out on Britain on its Egypt invasion. Indo-US relations turned more uneasy when, while India was convincing its neighbors to join the NAM, Pakistan joined hands with the US-led alliance. Afro-Asian unity. PM Nehru envisaged a major role for India in world affairs and especially Asian affairs. To facilitate this, Nehru hosted the Asian Relations Conference in Delhi in March 1947, 5 months prior to the complete independence of the country. India staunchly opposed racism and apartheid and openly supported decolonization. India opposed the colonial regimes and also held an international conference in 1949 to support Indonesia in gaining independence from the Dutch. The zenith of India's engagement with the newly independent Afro-Asian nations was established with the Bandung Conference held in 1955. It was the Bandung Conference that later led to the formation of the NAM.
So, after the Chinese Revolution in 1949, India was one of the first countries to recognize the communist government. Some of his colleagues, like Vallabhbhai Patel, he was so worried about a possible Chinese aggression in future. He knew that China would definitely attack India, but Nehru thought that India could face an attack from China. Then, on 29th April 1954, the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai signed the Panchsheel Agreement. Panchsheel, the 5 principles of peaceful coexistence. First, mutual respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. Second, mutual benefits and equality. Third, mutual non-aggression. Fourth, non-intervention in each other's international affairs. And fifth, to maintain international peace and understanding. This was a step in the direction stronger relationship between the two countries. Indian and Chinese leaders visited each other's country and were greeted by large and friendly crowds. The Chinese invasion, 1962. Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. It used to sound good, isn't it? Everything used to be so good. But what happened suddenly? After all, why? Why China attacked India in 1962? What was the main cause? China take over Tibet in 1950 and thus removed a historical buffer between the two countries. Between 1957 and 1959, the Chinese occupied the Aksai Chin area and built a strategic road there. Nehru sent a strong protest and invited the Chinese leaders for talks. Initially, the government of India did not oppose this openly. India gave shelter to Dalai Lama and China protested it. And China told India to broke Panchsheel Agreement, which they signed in 1954. China claimed 2 areas within the Indian territory, Aksai Chin area in the Ladakh region of Jammu and Kashmir and much of the state of Arunachal Pradesh in Nepal, northeastern frontier agency. C. Rajagopalachari, in his letter on December 1956, he said, "Frankly, my impression of Zhou Enlai was very favorable. The Chinese premier is, and I believe, a good type of man and trustworthy." Now, the Cuban Missile Crisis comes. As we studied in Chapter 1, the Cold War era of contemporary world politics. As you can see the map, this map shows the range of the nuclear missiles under construction in Cuba, used during the secret meetings on the Cuban Missile Crisis. While the entire world's attention was on the Cuban Missile Crisis, China launched a massive invasion in October 1962. China defeated India in the war. Then Defense Minister V. Krishna Menon had to leave the cabinet. Nehru was criticized, and for the first time, a non-confidence motion against his government was moved and debated in the Lok Sabha. India could not take help from USA and USSR due to Cuban Missile Crisis. The Sino-Indian conflict affected the political parties also. The CPI, Communist Party of India, in 1964 into 2 parts. First, CPI, which was in the favor of USSR, and second, CPIM, Marxist, which was in the favor of China. Many leaders of what become CPIM, which were arrested for being pro-China. The war with China alerted the Indian leadership to the volatile situation in the Northeast region. And apart from being isolated and extremely underdeveloped, this region also presented India with the challenge of national integration and political unity.
Now we will discuss about the Tibet issue. Tibet is a plateau lying north of the Great Himalayan ranges. India has had both geographical and mythological ties with Tibet. Lake Mansarovar and Mount Kailash in Tibet are regarded as the abode of the Hindu deities and have been places of pilgrimage from time immemorial. India's British rulers sought buffer states around the Indian subcontinent. In 1913 and 1914, the representatives of China, Tibet, and Britain met in India. At the Simla Convention, some special privileges were won for British India in Tibet. At the same time, the British agreed that China would maintain a general control over Tibet. By 1914, the Manchu Empire of China had collapsed. Tibet then formally declared its independence. This gave rise to a continuing controversy about the legal status of Tibet. The communist rulers of China had their eyes set on Tibet from the very beginning. Chinese army invaded Tibet in September 1949. India's Deputy Prime Minister Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel wrote to Prime Minister Nehru on 7th November 1950 expressing serious concern over developments of India's northeastern borders. According to Sardar Patel, communists could be as bad imperialists as any, but Nehru was unwilling to intervene in the matter. The 1954 Agreement. In 1954, India signed with China new agreement which regulated trade between Tibet and India. By this agreement, India gave up all the special privileges enjoyed by British India and recognized Chinese right to general control over Tibet. This agreement or treaty enunciated the principles that came to be known as five principles of peaceful coexistence. Nehru had hoped that Tibet would enjoy the status of an autonomous region of China. The Chinese strengthened firmly their hold on Tibet. In 1956, there was an uprising in some regions of Tibet. The Chinese army soon suppressed the revolt. The suppression culminated in Tibetan national uprising, an armed anti-Chinese revolt in 1958. It was estimated that nearly 87,000 Tibetans were killed. It was a horribly helpless situation. In 1959, the Dalai Lama, along with thousands of Tibetans, sought refuge in India. There was no question of denying asylum to Dalai Lama or the Tibetan refugees. Our government got them settled in a hill station called Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. The Dalai Lama was entrusted with the task of rehabilitation of the Tibetan refugees. The leaders of Jan Sangha and the Socialist Party disapproved of Nehru's action to have conceded China's control over Tibet. It would threaten the peace of India, they said. These were prophetic words because in 1962 our country was invaded by China.
Sino-India relations since 1962. It took more than a decade for India and China to resume normal relations. It was in 1976 that full diplomatic relations were restored between two countries. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the first top-level leader to visit China in 1979. Later, Rajiv Gandhi became the first Prime Minister after Nehru to visit China. Since then, the emphasis is more on the trade relations between the two countries. As we have studied in the book, do you know about movie Hakikat? It is a movie which is based on War of 1962 of India and China. Set in the backdrop of the China War of 1962, this film portrays the soldiers and his travels as its central theme. It pays tributes to the soldiers while depicting their plights and the political frustration over the battle by the Chinese. This film used documentary footages of war scenes is considered as one of the early war films made in Hindi.
Now we'll talk about wars and peace with Pakistan. In the case of Pakistan, the conflict started just after partition over the Kashmir. A more serious armed conflict between the two countries began in 1965. A long-term dispute about the sharing of the river water, and it was resolved through mediation by the World Bank. In April 1965, Pakistan launched armed attacks in the Run of Kutch area of the Gujarat. The hostilities came to an end with the UN intervention and Tashkent Agreement, signed between the heads of both of the countries as Indian Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri and Pakistan's General Ayub Khan in January 1966. Though India could inflict considerable military losses on Pakistan, the 1965 war added to India's already difficult economic situation. And here is the map.
Bangladesh was part of Pakistan from 1947 to 1971. It comprises of the partitioned area of Bengal and Assam from British India. Pakistan faced its biggest internal crisis during the country's first general election. Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's party emerged as a winner in the West Pakistan, while the Awami League, led by Sheikh Mujib-ur-Rahman, swept through the East Pakistan. The Bengali population of East Pakistan were not happy being treated as second-class citizens by the rulers based in the West Pakistan. In the early 1971, the Pakistani army arrested Sheikh Mujib and unleashed a reign of terror on the people of East Pakistan. During this time, India had to bear the burden of about 80 lakh refugees who fled from East Pakistan and took shelter in the neighboring areas in India. Pakistan was supported and backed by US and China. To counter this US-China-Pakistan axis, India signed a 20-year treaty of peace and friendship with the Soviet Union in August 1971. This treaty assured India of Soviet support if the country faced any attack. After months of diplomatic tension between India and Pakistan, they broke out in a full-scale war during December 1971. Pakistani aircrafts attacked Punjab and Rajasthan. India also retaliated by involving Air Force, Navy and Army on both Western and the Eastern Front. The local population supported Indian Army, which helped Indian Army to gain access in the East Pakistan. Within 10 days, the Indian Army had surrounded Dhaka and the army of about 90,000 had to surrender. Bangladesh was announced as a free country. The Shimla Agreement between Indira Gandhi and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was signed on July 3, 1972, which formalized the return of peace.
The Kargil confrontation. Suspecting involvement of the Pakistan army, Indian forces started reaching to this occupation and led to a confrontation between the two countries. This is known as the Kargil conflict. The Kargil conflict originated when several points on the Indian side of the LOC were occupied by the Pakistani forces called Mujahideens. This conflict went on from May to June, and by 26th June, most of the lost points were recaptured by the Indian Army. This conflict drew worldwide attention just because now India and Pakistan were both nuclear states and the war could have turned vulnerable to the nuclear arsenal. However, this conflict remained confined only to the Kargil region, but in Pakistan, this conflict has been the major source of a controversy, as it was alleged later that the Prime Minister of the Pakistan was kept in the dark by the army chief. Soon after this conflict, the government of Pakistan was taken over by the Pakistan Army, led by the Army Chief, General Pervez Musharraf. It is the map which depicts the location of the Kargil War.
India's nuclear policy. India's advocates no first use and India commitment to global verifiable or non-discriminatory nuclear disarmament leading to a nuclear-free world. Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru promoted science and technology to build a modern India, that is initiated nuclear program in the late 1940s under the guidance of Homi J. Bhabha. India was against nuclear weapons, hence pleaded many nuclear disarmament with superpowers. India was always considered NPT as discriminatory and refused to sign on it. Even India's first nuclear test in May 1974 was termed as a peaceful explosion, and India argued to use nuclear power for peaceful purpose only. India's nuclear program. India opposed the indefinite extension of the NPT in 1995 and also refused to sign the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty CTBT. India has conducted a series of nuclear tests in May 1998, demonstrating its capacity to use nuclear energy for military purpose. The international community was extremely critical of nuclear tests in the subcontinent. India's nuclear doctrine of credible minimum nuclear deterrence, no first use. Now I will tell you 5 interesting facts about India's first nuclear test. Fifth fact, Pokhran Test Range, Thar Desert, 18th May, sign code name of India, 1974. First nuclear bomb was Lemming Buddha. Pokhran 1 nuclear test confirmed by a nation outside UNSC by 5 members. Fourth fact, India started its own nuclear program in 1944 with Homi J. Bhabha founded Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. They insisted Raja Ram Mohan Roy to play an essential role to make nuclear weapon policy research. Third fact, December 1971, during Indo-Pak War, USA carrier battle group was sent into the Bay of Bengal to intimidate India. Soviet Union responded by sending submarine armed with nuclear missiles. Second fact, the device was implosion type of design and had a close resemblance to the American nuclear bomb called the Fat Man. The cross section 1.25 meter in diameter and weighted 1400 kilogram. The first fact, the device was placed in a shaft 107 meter under the surface. Atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima had a unit of 50 kilotons of TNT, and the Fat Man atomic bomb dropped on Nagasaki had the unit of 20 kilotons of TNT. Timeline of India's nuclear development program. Institute of Fundamental Research in 1945, establishment of Atomic Energy Commission 1948, Atomic Energy Act of 1948 and 1962, development of atomic energy was set up in 1954. In 1957, India established its first nuclear research center at Mumbai, Bhabha Atomic Research Center, 1967. In this picture shows India's three-stage nuclear power program formulated by Homi Bhabha in the 1950s to secure the country long-term energy independence. First stage, pressurized heavy water reactor. Second stage, fast breeder reactor. Third stage, theorem-based reactor.
Now the next topic is shifting alliances in world politics. The Janata Party government that come to power in 1977 resolved to correcting the pro-Soviet tilt in India's foreign policy and follow genuine non-alignment. But the government that came after 1990 have been criticized for their pro-US tilt. India shifted to a pro-US policy after the disbanding of the USSR. Russia lost its international eminence. This has also made an impact on India's foreign policy choices, as the Indo-Pakistan relations have witnessed many new developments, while Kashmir continues to be the main issue between the two countries. There have been many efforts to restore the normal relations. This means cultural exchanges, movement of people, and economic cooperation would be encouraged by both countries. Do you know that a train and a bus service operate between these two countries? This has been an achievement of the recent times, but that could not avoid the near war from emerging in 1999. Even after the setback to the peace process, efforts at maintaining durable peace have been going on. And here we can see India following the bandwagon strategy between the period 1970 to 1999. What is the bandwagon strategy? It is suggested that instead of engaging in activities opposed to hegemonic powers, it may be advisable to extract benefits by operating within the hegemonic system. This is called the bandwagon strategy.
Peace and conflict with China. This cartoon shows how PM Nehru was completely faithful of China being a friend of India. But we can see how China uses fake accusations and provocations to attack on India, breaking the PM's trust and proving Patel's fears true. As you can see, the words written on road like baseless charges, accusation, provocations were used by China to take over the territory. Now, the next cartoon comes is Peace and Wars with Pakistan. As you can see the headline which says Pak forces run into Chamb area. Before the capture of Chamb by Pakistan forces, this western sector was under India's control. Similar to was 1965 plans were made to capture the strategic town. The reason behind this plan was to deter Indians from attacking the crucial north-south line of communications passing via Gujarat. The 23 Division of Pakistan was given the task of protecting this sector and later attacking the Chamb-Dewa sectors. In the comparison of 1965, the Indians were better prepared in terms of military forces and now realize the real importance of towns and sectors in the country. In this slide, it tells about Bangladesh War, also known as the Bangladesh War of Independence or simply the Liberation War in Bangladesh. It was a revolution and armed conflict sparked by the rise of the Bengali nationalists and the self-determination movement in what was then East Pakistan during the 1971 Bangladesh genocide. It resulted in the independence of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. The war began after the Pakistani military junta based in West Pakistan launched the Operation Searchlight against the people of East Pakistan on the night of 25 March 1971. As you can see, the troops on the roads of Bangladesh. After this, the junta annulled the result of the 1970 elections and arrested Prime Minister designate Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. The war ended on 16 December 1971 after West Pakistan surrendered. This cartoon represents is that Nehru took a prominent role in international politics, founding non-aligned movement and advocating nuclear disarmament. However, he refused to foreclose India's nuclear option, while other nations maintained nuclear arsenals and supported programs and designed to bolster India's weapons potential. Meanwhile, Nehru said that India would use atomic energy for peaceful ends, but if threatened by military, the government will inevitably try to defend itself by all means at its disposal.
Indo-China relation. For thousands of years, Tibet was a buffer that kept India and China geographically apart and at peace. It is only after China invaded and occupied Tibet in 1950 the two countries are sharing a common border. Nehru's views supporting an independent Tibet gave rise to a Chinese mistrust. Nehru accepted China's sovereignty over Tibet but wanted Tibet to maintain autonomous and Tibetan regard for India as their spiritual mentor, and the Holy Land was a concern for China. As China tightened its grip on Tibet, India gave asylum to the Dalai Lama in 1959. A boundary dispute had surfaced between India and China. India claimed that the boundary was a matter settled in the colonial time, but China said that any colonial decision did not apply. The main dispute was about the western and the eastern end of the long border. China claimed two areas within the Indian territory, that is Aksai Chin area in the Ladakh region of Jammu and Kashmir and much of the state of the Arunachal Pradesh in what was then called the Northeastern Frontier Agency. In 1962, China's People's Liberation Army invaded India in Ladakh and across the McMahon Line in then the Northeast Frontier Agency. After this conflict, relations were in the freeze. In this cartoon, we can see how Indian government along with the Chinese one is trying to untangle the relationship between India and China. The Wuhan meeting in April 2018 between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping is being hailed a new chapter in relation as the two countries engage in the wake of the post-Doklam rhetoric, which is also being called as a reset.